Hi, I'm Arthur, and it's time for me to elaborate on something I am incredibly passionate about. Passionate more so than most things, if I'm being completely honest. See, when I got into the hobby, which comparatively to like a lot of other YouTubers in my sphere was actually relatively recent, considering I only started playing 40k and, well, war games in the start of like late 7th edition, and I started with Tau. And then, when 8th edition was announced, I decided to go in a bit on Death Guard and split the Dark Imperium box with my then partner. I thought the Death Guard would be a fun side army, but a few months deep and I ended up selling all of my Tau, and Nurgle had a strong grasp on my heart like nothing else. I want you to know the thousands of dollars I have invested in Death Guard and Nurgle demons is actually quite obscene. So when I say Nurgle is the best Chaos God, know that it is coming from a completely biased position. And I will try my best to show off the negatives of Nurglite corruption and move on from there as to why. Before we get into the positive, I have a lot to say. Nurgle flat out dunks on more or less all of the Chaos Gods in terms of worship and aesthetic, though in terms of aesthetic, there is a few caveats, and we will get into that. So starting off, let's talk about all of the negative aspects. Can't just jump head first in, gotta give the Tzeentch fans something to cope over, right? So the biggest negatives about Nurgle is the process of the corruption that Nurgle worship kind of brings on is a bit rough. There are usually two ways people become Nurgle worshippers. There are infinite ways to become it, but the two main ones are, one, you are forced to, because you are infected with like mega cancer and you need a way to survive, or two, you actively search them out. Either way, in the early stages, before you prove yourself, you're gonna get sick and you're gonna be in a lot of pain. Before Nurgle does the like, and now you don't feel pain thing that they do. Sometimes you can be infected with something that is going to make your life quite literally a living hell for a little while, or you could just get something like the walking pox and just become a plaything for a greater chaos being. Another big thing that a lot of people don't like about Nurgle corruption is you are super fucking a go. Like, you are going to be the least aesthetically pleasing of all the chaos corrupted cultists in your area, and you are going to leak from every hole. You are also going to bleed from your pores, and you are going to get all of this fluid everywhere, and not in a subtle way. You are genuinely going to be a bloated and rotten corpse by the end of it, but you won't feel any of it. You'll just be benefited somehow by it. And that's kind of it. Cope and seethe, but yeah, just being ugly and having to deal with a lot of pain on the front end is kind of just the major drawbacks. Also, you know, the high mortality rate because you are getting infected with quite a lot of diseases, but you know, that's kind of it. Positives-wise, there is a lot. So for one, of all the Chaos Gods, Nurgle canonically loves you. His way of showing love is a bit weird because he infects you with a horrible disease and gives you a bunch of different ailments, but if you stick around long enough and don't perish, there is a lot of benefits to them. In The Lords of Silence by Chris Raitt, you actually find out that after a certain while, Nurgle gives you a beneficial mutation that will likely help you at some point. You just don't know how. When one of the main characters questioned why he grew even more layers of flab that he didn't need, it eventually ended up blocking shots from a heavy bolter and it kept him alive. Though he was also questioning at the time why his lungs were being filled with liquid, but hey, he'll find out at some point. Not in that book, but he will find out. Regardless, the gifts Nurgle gives come without pain and also come as a sign of respect and joy. You will mutate, but you will be stronger for it. Unlike that punk bitch Tzeentch who might just turn you into a blob for no reason, with Nurgle, you at least know the reason as to why you have been turned into a blob. Though I also want to go into the main promise of Nurgle so you can understand why people actively choose to go after Nurgle over the other gods when, you know, you look so gross. See, where with Khorne worship, you go for super strength and the ability to conquer worlds. With Tzeentch worship, you get magic and the ability to summon arcane blasts and have power the likes of which you can't comprehend. With Slaanesh, it's obviously endless pleasure. And with Nurgle worship, you go to him for immortality and an end to pain, which is probably one of the most relatable kinds of worship I have ever seen, because fear of pain and fear of death are more or less the most well-known and common fears on the planet. So Nurgle increasing your lifespan as your tissue, although rotten, keeps on regrowing just to rot further, is a good response to death and the cessation of life. It's why Nurgle demon princes are considered some of the hardest to kill entities in the 40k setting, Age of Sigmar setting, and Blood Bowl, I guess. So before I move on to the tabletop stuff, I just want to say Nurgle is a god of stasis, a god of continuation, where you will always know that stability is the main goal. So it's why there really isn't a lot of betrayal in Nurgle's ranks. It does exist. Everyone is trying to get ahead, but betrayal is often punished by Nurgle pretty severely, to be honest. But yeah, on to what I think is one of the coolest parts of Nurgle, and one of the reasons why I thought I should make this. The Nurgle range is probably one of the coolest armies in the entire range of Warhammer games. The demons look dope, even the older ones, well, with exceptions. I will say that Epidemius is likely the worst looking miniature I've ever seen. It literally is just a Play-Doh blob. But now that that's gone, let's talk about things like the Great Unclean One, the Rot Flies. Most of it all look fantastic, even the old Forge World stuff like the Plague Toads. And even on the tabletop, they are so beautiful. The Great Unclean One is a model so big that if you put it on the table, it will always look impressive, and I think that's one of the best things about it. And don't even get me started on the Death Guard, which aesthetically are one of my favorite legions, though they are still edged out by the Night Lords and the Iron Warriors, but I digress. The Death Guard's demon engines and the Plague Marines as a whole are just goddamn beautiful, in an ugly way, though I will say, as a negative side effect of them being so grotesquely detailed, they are a pain in the ass to paint. They are legit one of the most complicated and overly designed miniatures in the settings, in any of the settings, and you will only find out truly if you start painting them. Deadass, they just keep having more tentacles and bubbles everywhere. I feel it's a Nurgle-like curse that whenever you turn the model, even if you painted the entire left side of it, you turn it back to the left side later, there's more tentacles that you just missed. But if you have the patience for it, they are some of the most beautiful miniatures to put on the table and actually field. I should note, not sponsored, but I do want to shout out a third-party distributor of Nurgle-adjacent miniatures that are not Nurgle in the slightest, but it's a developer by the name of Mezgeik, and I'm hoping I'm saying that properly. I recently ended up picking up a 3D printer because Mishmash kept smashing me over the head with a rolled-up newspaper to play core, but Mezgeik has a kind of offshoot that is vaguely similar to the Death Guard range called the Dredge, and holy shit, these miniatures are beautiful. They totally aren't Death Guard. I hope you understand that legally speaking and creatively, I'd say that they're incredibly distinct from Death Guard. They can be used as beautiful display pieces and base decorations for your perfectly legally acquired 40k miniatures, if you catch my drift. Wink wink, nudge nudge. They also do orcs. If you want to check them out, I really like their range. If you have a 3D printer, they're perfect, though they do offer physical miniatures as well. Regardless, Death Guard minis are dope as hell, and I think you should all appreciate them more. So to end all this, I want to say that with how the universe of 40k works, with this next segment, I'm not going to be speaking about any other than 40k because they kind of have sort of different fundamentals. So you can probably seal away Slaanesh if the universe gets rid of all their pleasure centers all at once, because they did it in AOS, so why not in 40k? You can probably get rid of Tzeentch if the universe became a bit more honest and people stopped being dicks to each other. You can get rid of Tzeentch and not much would be impacted. You probably couldn't get rid of Khorne because violence is inherent to nature, but there is absolutely no goddamn way you're getting rid of Nurgle, which is why Nurgle is often consistently the strongest or close to the strongest of the Chaos Gods during that kind of ebb and flow. If you draw breath, you will one day die. If you are sentient, you are afraid of that. That fear is what feeds Nurgle, the fear of loss, the fear of decay, and so on. Alongside that, disease as a concept could be wiped out, but fear of pain, and so on, would probably never even come close to being gone, as long as sapient or even sentient life exists. But that is just me waxing poetic about why Nurgle is the best, and why you should accept his love. If you agree or disagree, let me know in the comments. Alongside that, remember to like and subscribe as it helps the channel. And if this video ends up getting 3,000 likes, I'll make a video about Malice, the secret 5th god of chaos. And if it hits 6K, I'll do something even weirder. Special thanks to my channel members for supporting me, and if you want to support me as well as gain access to additional or early content, then become a channel member today. Thanks once again for watching. Remember to use code BONEZONE for 10% off GamerSupps purchases. And before I go, man, should I cover the weirder or forgotten Chaos Gods later? I know Pancreas No Work did that, and I'm usually pretty quick to copy his shtick. Who knows? Maybe just to scare you all, I will.